My family is trying to make my golden child sister the bride at my wedding. I'm planning my revenge. I'm getting married, and my family wants my golden child sister to go down the aisle in white. I'm going to take my revenge. Here I am, writing this lengthy story on my vacation, but it seems cathartic to finally get it out. My hubby is more enthused about this than the resort drinks. This is a throwaway because I don't have a Reddit account, and my spouse, the Reddit fanatic, has stated that he does not want this affiliated with him. As for why the Reddit person isn't writing this, he said that because it's my family, I should be the one to write the tale, but he's over my shoulder to help out. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure how this works, but I do not give permission for this to be reposted anywhere. I believe it is vital to provide some context to explain how this behavior escalated and why our responses were as they were. I am sorry for the long read. My parents have always shown more affection for my sister. I do not mean in subtle ways either. If my sister accuses me of something, they will believe her and punish me. They wouldn't believe me if I accused her, even if I had undeniable evidence. They'd still give her a lighter punishment while simultaneously scolding me. My birthday cake had to be the flavor she preferred, hers did not. My parents always denied knowing I disliked that style of cake. They always paid a little more for her than for me. We went where she wanted, even though it was an occasion that was supposed to be about me. My sister grew up pampered and disliked me. She used me as a punching bag. She generally ignored me at first, but when we were early teenagers, things got pretty ugly. I'm not sure what caused it, but she lost all of her friends and her conduct deteriorated. Did her buddies relocate? Did they leave her because she was mean? I don't know because we were never close, and my parents loved to brag about her accomplishments while never mentioning any problems. Unlike me, they enjoyed continuously pointing out my weaknesses as taunting material. I just knew she had none because we went to the same school and I observed she was no longer roaming around with other people. Anyway, she didn't have any friends. I did. I used to be fairly popular. My sister noticed this, and I went from being an occasional punching bag to a despised somebody she had to eliminate at all costs. She began accusing me of more of everything. She charged my friends with numerous transgressions. My parents stopped letting me hang around with anyone. Their explanations ranged from "they're not decent people according to your sister," to "why are you attempting to leave us? Why won't you enjoy family time and be like your sister?" Extended family gave me something to prevent total solitude. My cousins and I got along despite minor age disparities. Most of my relatives resided in the same town. They invited me over to something at one occasion. I regrettably said, "I'm not allowed to go anywhere." I don't recall what. My child self, without thinking through it, said that it was because I wasn't allowed to have friends since my sister didn't have any. That got to the grown-ups, who supposedly split my parents apart later. It was worth it even though I was grounded, as if I had someplace to go, for a month and was chastised for lying. After that, they let me some freedom. And my sister started a different school. She begged to be changed, and I suppose the humiliation of extended family knowing her socio-economic level was terrible. Though it cost more since the school was further away, my parents complied right away. At the new school though, she befriended others. She never returned to the former norm of largely ignoring me though. She never let me go. I suppose she was enraged that I informed her family she had no friends and felt the power of how badly she could screw with me. My life continued to be miserable. Her pals would visit and harass me and my parents would label it light teasing. My parents were terrible hosts to friends, so I never invited anyone over. My sister would accuse them of pilfering items, and they would believe her. My parents never dared to do any of that to relatives, hence I did get close to my cousins. I then landed my first boyfriend. Though my parents pushed, I absolutely wanted not to bring him home. We were split once, and he came to locate me informing him that my sister was flirting with him. She meant she arrived in under-fitting clothes, battered her lashes severely, and began telling him how horrible I was and how good she was. Angry, he bolted off to locate me. Naturally, my sister told my parents a different story, that my boyfriend had tried to flirt with her but she had naturally objected since, how could she do that to me? Try to guess what my folks thought. My guy was not perfect now, but I accepted him right away for a cruel reason. But keep in mind that I was a teenage victim of harsh treatment back then. Originally disliked my sister as much as I hated myself, I was extremely resentful and moody. Having that disclaimer clear the path, let us now discuss appearances. They weren't relevant, therefore I hadn't discussed them yet. Since my sister loved displaying love by food, giving you more food, buying sweets, etc., my sister was also overweight. My parents were overweight as well. Whereas I am not now and was not. Actually, I have always been really slim, as punishment sometimes meant no snacks or treats. Obviously, personality is what counts. Weight is not. Even then though, my sister was already spoilt and unpleasant. She never learnt to work for anything since she could demand and my parents would supply, hence even her flirting efforts were awful. Not to mention that she didn't seem like some beautiful model. Not even my self-conscious young self thought my boyfriend would attempt and cheat on me with her. My parents forbade me from dating such a bad lad, nonetheless. Though it was difficult, I did try to keep going in secret until the relationship broke. I did have another boyfriend, but once more, my sister claimed was flirting with her when he turned down her attempts. Once more, my parents believed her. I attempted pointing out how this happened once more, but they concluded that indicated I was incapable of making wise decisions and constantly choosing lousy mates. The relationship fluttered out once more, unable to manage the Romeo and Juliet scenario. In high school I would eventually be called names, as I was okay with making out with guys and things but refused to form relationships. Luckily, it never got back to my parents or sister. Now, my sister did bring one man home over all this period. Until he stopped coming up, my parents spent every second reminding me how terrific he was and why I couldn't be like my sister and get myself someone like that. He was paraded with pride. He became suddenly a cunning bastard who misled my sister. Well then. And the unfair treatment carried on. She had more spending money at this time, her curfews were far better than mine, and she could go any place at any time, whereas I was not free to. If I brought it up, my parents would claim it's because she's older. But I still didn't get the same treatment until I reached that age. Pointed out, they denied they ever stated that, or claimed it was because I couldn't be trusted like she was, citing my poor judgment against my partners and friends as evidence. Time passes and my sister's graduation is approaching. She had no scholarship or anything. She was admitted into a college, not a particularly esteemed one. Once more, I'm not sure which universities she ever tried for, as only her successes were reported to me, hence I can't say how poorly she was turned down. She had poor marks in the classroom, though, since we would always celebrate any time she received a B. Usually I would obtain good marks, but my parents objected to celebrating since I always got those and asked what celebration would be appropriate. My parents assured my sister they would pay for everything and naturally made a lot of fanfare for her. She would be leaving, so relieving me, not that it would simplify my life. Every other weekend, she would always return home. Still, some item vanished from her room or some other problem she would consider to bring my life terrible. My curfews still were rigorous, etc. Finally, my mother came to discuss my approaching graduation. My sister is 1 year older than I am. She advised me to start working right away after graduation and wait until my sister completed college to see if they could afford anything for me, since they were paying for her schooling and had no money for mine. Oh, and if I stayed at home I would have to pay rent, part of the bills, and all my stuff. I mentioned I may apply for school loans. Mom answered yes, except not quite. That is because I had such poor judgment and they would evaluate whether or not a college was worth my getting in debt on, given their extreme compassion for me. I didn't ask, but I'm not sure how they would ban me from acquiring loans. Scholarships were not mentioned. They never believed in my ability either and had no idea what my grades were now. I did not blink at all. I said just okay. My mother continued to push, plainly not expecting that. Perhaps she wanted me to act out so they might have a justification for never ever paying for my college. I only stated, though, that I appreciated their concern and that I understood their viewpoint. Later, my dad tried the same, but I too refrained from showing emotions. You see, I never had any aspirations regarding my schooling after a lifetime of their horrible upbringing. I knew they would find a means to avoid paying for mine and ruin my life. Working and waiting for my sister to graduate never convinced me they would finally pay. I had long been getting ready for college. I had plenty of time to study. My friendships were few and I could hardly get out. And I studied as I saw my sole opportunity for freedom in college. When the time arrived, I worked assiduously and was awarded a scholarship. Not to some place like Ivy League or anything like law or medical school, but it was a good enough course in a solid university with a full scholarship. Knowing my sister would object and try to stop me using my parents, I posted my success on social media. I told them at the same moment, even made myself thank them in the post under duress. Now they would have to explain to the family why not, so they cannot stop me from leaving. They were first even somewhat proud and boasted about it. Then I suppose my sister arrived, and they shifted gears, even asking whether I was sure I wanted to go. They let out that my sister wasn't doing well in college. Since she was brighter and had better judgment than me, I would suffer more. I certainly stayed to my guns. Though they couldn't do anything, they were not happy. My savers were college. I began to find happiness. I still visited on holidays and such and spoke with my parents, but since they refused to pay for anything, I could explain not going a lot due of money. I skipped introducing any man to them during this period, and my sister quit attending college. She didn't graduate, since once more they would have made a hoopla over it. She returned home paying no rent or bills, but it's different, my parents noted. She began working for the same company as my mother, clearly because of her string pulling. I bought all of this to feel proud. Oh well, practically there, I swear. About this time I met my husband. You know those folks that claim, if I were in X situation, I would have done something. The kind that actually does is my hubby. I'm the type that is meek and a doormat in every circumstance, then I find myself unable to sleep at night wishing I had done something, considered something clever to say, etc. It is me that finds myself crying uncontrollably when I am furious. My hubby is the one that instantly claps back. He enjoys resolving drama as much as its production. If he doesn't react right away to a minor, you should start worrying as he won't forgive and forget. He is merely acting in a worse manner in payback. Though he wanted me to post on a nuclear revenge board as well, he insisted what we did wasn't nuclear. People were perplexed when I got acquainted with him, yet it didn't mean I didn't enjoy it since, thanks to my background, most likely, I was unable of acting like him. My husband treats people kindly as long as they treat him the same way, and I adore that he does what I cannot. When we talked about marriage, we agreed that our budget would not allow us much interest in the ceremony. Instead, we would much prefer spend on a dream vacation to Europe for our honeymoon. Regarding where to conduct it, we chose my hometown since his family was scattered and mine was still primarily concentrated there. We weren't living too far off either, so we could handle things by going on occasional weekend-long visits. There was also some work flexibility so, should necessary, we could spend some time at my hometown. A few months later, we issued the save the date and the engagement announcement. Well, at this time my folks naturally insisted they meet my man. I wanted to reject but was having trouble growing a spine. The distance had caused me to wonder maybe my folks weren't all that horrible. When I told my spouse, he looked like I canceled Christmas. At least I would guarantee they never left him alone. See, he had been getting ready for this. He even purchased a top-notch recorder he could hide in a pocket to capture everything. Driven, he considered all the ways he might turn down my sister's efforts, offend her, then forward the tape of her attempts to my family. So out he went alone and eager to see them, then returned later ecstatic. Babe, darling, the terrible things they yearn for would astound you. Babe, there are so many possibilities. We can screw them over so horrible. Though I wanted to hear the recording since I was perplexed, he wisely advised me it would be preferable to listen to him first, otherwise I might misinterpret him. He visited and instead of the flirting, my sister and parents sat him down. My judgment, etc. They declared they were ready to pay for my wedding on one condition: my sister would walk down the aisle first, in a wedding dress, after some grumbling about not being comfortable with him. Their justification was that it was only fair if my sister got at least the experience of it, at my venue, with pictures being shot, in the dress, and she would have a cake later too, etc. It was not okay for a younger sister to marry first. My husband will type his part now. Hey, here's a resentful hubby. When his lover is mocked, hell hath no wrath like a pro-revenge, instantaneous karma, nuclear revenge lurker. Having said that, even if my wife, who is now my wife, paints me as this quick-witted guy, I admit my neurons all but short-circuited when those people legit proposed. Like, some sort of fantastic present even Troy would rather take in the horse a second time, methinks. After my brain reset, I did have a huge repertoire of insults ready to pour forth, but something in my soul whispered in my ear like the devil, string these along. I then claimed I had to consider how my fiancé, back then, would respond and then hurried out before I could reveal my sinister intentions. Now back to me, the wife. With a smile on his face, my husband then truly related how my parents wanted even my wedding to be about my sister and had the recording to back it up. I looked surprised. The distance had eased their treatment of me, and I reasoned even they wouldn't travel so far. Fortunately, my husband's insistence on the angle of revenge prevented me from entering a negative headspace. We had a great time brainstorming ways to screw them over, ideas ranging from shockingly crazy to what we felt was practical. When we settled on a strategy, we then phoned his much more level-headed sibling. It included 2 venue addresses, giving the incorrect one, etc. Level-headed brother chastised us for this though. Although he admitted he would never be able to persuade us against revenge, at least he showed us anything like that would be difficult to execute. Among our other suggestions, several ran the danger of getting us sued. We finally decided on the most benign course of action. Follow our agreement, then pay security and forbid her access. Clearly, if that was it, that would not be pro-revenge. Mostly my hubby, but here goes since he wants me to do the honors. Just crucial to note, everything he accomplished was already covered with me and reflected our shared opinions. He returned to my parents, asked questions, then concluded I wouldn't be down with it. He didn't see the problem though, and his desire for family to remain intact would be in line with supporting them through that process. He noted that I dislike conflict, hence if I were shocked with it, I might not act out in front of all the people. Conversely, marriage is really important, so who knew if I would lose control? He so proposed a compromise. They would assist with expenses. In this sense, I would be even more under pressure to say nothing since not only would we be in public with our families there, but I would be appreciative of their help, which would calm me. It was acceptable as my grown sister started skipping with delight, actually, like a child, while my parents seemed surprised. Important, my husband also claimed that, due of some horrible judgment in lovers in the past, these phrases were all my idea and I'm so proud of using their words against them, haha. I was distrustful and controlling and wanted to check his phone and whatnot to guarantee he wasn't cheating on me. This made it absolutely necessary that nothing of this strategy was ever documented. He would go over to their house to discuss any topic related to my sister coming down the aisle before me. And so started the months of lies in which my husband and I were milking my parents and sister, while they thought they were fooling me. How can this be achieved? Of course, my parents wanted input in everything. Not pay for the wedding and lay quiet. My husband would persuade me to let go of some things that meant a lot to me, like the music and color palette, so keeping me in line. But everything else was fair game. We never really cared for the ceremony to start with. We would visit, say, to review the drink and menu selections. We would then accept the lowest or second lowest price choice. Then my husband would surreptitiously bring my sister there to also try it, then sigh and remark, "It's a pity we don't want to abuse my parents' goodwill, so we wouldn't get the best option." Cue my sister insisting my parents pay for the best. After that, my parents paid for the most costly and would reassure me not to worry. Same was done with the flowers and photographer. My husband unhappily told my sister that I wanted some other tasteless flowers after handing her a bouquet of the ones we wanted. Cue my parents informing me they would pay for such flowers and wanted us to accompany them. About the wedding dress, we run across a small hitch. Though it wasn't my style and wouldn't look well on me, my parents wanted me to wear an awful dress. Okay, not overtly hideous. Our idea was to say okay and then not use it, but my mom messaged me about it so there would be evidence I said okay. We had to follow me steadfastly and in text rejecting. Going over there, my husband stated he would see what he could do. My sister advised destroying my intended dress so I would have to wear the other one. He answered as though he agreed. They truly kept communications outside any text throughout all of this. We made sure that happened by having me respond anytime my sister tried messaging my husband. They believed that and never risked anything in writing since this confirmed the I'm controlling and neurotic allegations my spouse was making. Though I'm such a doormat that the idea of being represented as controlling and dangerous is rather humorous to me, maybe some individuals might not appreciate the idea of their partner going around and talking poorly of them to family. I encouraged him on to do it. I suppose I have a distorted sense of humor, laughing here. Oh, and my sister did try to flirt with him, but he responded conflictedly also to truly sell that he was with them. Though he never told them we hired security, my husband would act to tell them information without my knowing. That was really humorous. Having really thought about a courthouse wedding to save money for our honeymoon, my husband and I ended up having an ostentatious, costly wedding and hardly spent $1. From my parents, we dubbed it back pay for emotional damages, LOL. I believe my husband. Okay. He just acknowledged I'm right, was more enjoying the whole deceiving them than he did organizing our wedding, LEL. Here we are, not as though I would have imagined it imaginable to see a man grinning at the idea of squandering his whole Saturday driving to talk wedding preparations with his in-laws. Not too far off was the day. My parents, sister and husband had devised a strategy whereby one waits until everyone is seated. The bride always arrives late, hence they would have my sister arrive at that exact moment to avoid me seeing her and trying to stop it, and she would walk down the aisle. It would be too late to act by the time I found out. Regarding my dress, we preserved some of the extra fabric from my dress changes. My husband brought that to my parents' house, my sister still resides with them even now, and presented it as evidence he had destroyed the garment. Then he stated he had to get back to me as I was fuming and he had to cool me down. She would see them at the wedding. Initially, we made sure to keep our actual security under wraps. All the visitors and my parents could see as they came was a woman with a name list to cross-reference. We brought out security, a man looking like a bodyguard. Only once my parents came and sat down. We advised him not to let anyone, especially my sister, in, and even agreed on a nice tip should he fail to disclose our scheme. Not too long later the time arrived. My dad went and encouraged people to start since my parents received a text saying my sister was less than 5 minutes away. Originally instructed to follow his direction, my bridesmaids obeyed without consulting me. My dad waited at the door as though waiting for me after everyone descended and replaced each other. One buddy not in the wedding party texted me throughout this to get ready. This was because people would notice if my spouse or bridesmaids, etc., pulled out a phone and started texting. This friend was in on the plot. She's my husband's friend. And she didn't care about being a bridesmaid or anything. She was ready to assist stir drama as he is. The bridal song started playing as soon as my dad settled in. The doors opened and I followed in. At me being there, my dad became pale. He tried peering behind me, but he couldn't see the venue entrance from where we were, so he was unable to ascertain what happened to my sister. His phone then started to ring. Her was the caller ID I noticed. He merely left me there, whispered. Something came up. Around there were gasps and uncertainty. The buddy in on it inquired loudly what had happened. Lying, I said, in a sad voice, he told me it wasn't supposed to be me there. Although he said nothing, my husband and I decided that I should tell him to appear the worst possible should he dare leave me. Regarding the tears, I wish I could claim it was only my great acting. But no. Despite all, a part of me didn't think he would go as far as to abandon me there. Though only a clever joke, I felt the sister thing was untrue. Unknown. I was hurt, still am, so I was truly trying not to cry. Then the friend yelled, "What did he mean by it shouldn't be you?" So that as many people as possible might hear and disseminate it. I will go and check, she remarked quickly and hurried off. We decided to do this so she might create hell with the security and block my dad from returning to halt the ceremony or whatever. My mother also departed eventually. My husband's dad hurried over at this point and grabbed my arm. He had been informed he might have to. I started to smile seeing him sprint to me. Walking down the aisle to whispers, I listened to people talk about what transpired. Some presumably left to also check. Still, all was good when I got to my hubby. Joking that my depressed expression was so real I deserved an Oscar and not to worry, he would sweep them over the coals for what they did, lol, and help me feel better. We tied the knot without incident. My parents did not return. During the celebration, I did observe a lot of individuals leaving and then returning. None of them ventured to tell me what was happening. My husband left after someone came to speak in his ear. After some while, he returned with a stormy look but whispered in my ear that he had to hide somewhere before he broke character and started laughing, lol. What happened is it went right. From friends, relatives, the security guard and my spouse, the following is the combined story I got later. My sister did show up wearing a bridal dress. By our arrangement, the security turned her away. Since there was already a bride, he said she should be in the incorrect place. Indeed, we gave him quite good tips as promised. Claiming he never known him, thus he couldn't be working there, my dad went there and attempted threatening him with the police. The security agreed to the police as he was engaged by us and performing his duties. By then my dad knew it would be too late and tried to insist he let my sister inside. By now the friend arrived, began yelling and disparaging my sister and asked what was going on, basically stalling. Shortly later, my mother arrived. Later on others too. The wedding scheme was bust at this time. Now all my parents could do was damage control since everyone who knew about it would attempt and pull it, yelling and berating them. The three naturally said it wasn't a secret and threw my spouse under the bus. My hubby called at this point. He presented his finest confused and denigrated appearance when he arrived and denied. Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. LOL says, quoting him. He claimed never to have agreed to anything so ludicrous. He sought evidence when they insisted he did and naturally they couldn't find any. Every SMS exchange they produced focused on typical wedding decisions. Apparently sitting on the floor thrashing her legs like a toddler, my sister was scream-crying. Though security and other people held him back, my dad seemed like he would have beat my husband. They said, of course, they lacked evidence as my husband advised them against texting. Laughing, my spouse remarked, "Wow, how convenient, huh?" Then he reiterated, why would he ever agree to something so absurd? He tore them a fresh one about being terrible parents, then turned back to me saying he wouldn't let their dumb ideas and lying ruin his wedding. Nobody thought they true. Although the location has cameras, they refused to show me the tape since that was just for security needs. Some others, though, recorded portions of it. It was amazing to see everyone who came out to watch the drama break apart my parents and sister. One of the finest wedding presents was seeing them have taste of their own medicine after years of being accused of things and not believed. While my sister was still on the floor screaming and wailing, my mother was crying and my dad was switching from purple to white. People were questioning, why would my husband agree? They insisted my spouse was in on it. Why was there no evidence? Why would they want my sister to act in this way with my wedding? To any of it, they had no decent response. They had no choice but to leave when they were eventually instructed to. Apparently, my dad had to drag my sister up since she wouldn't leave the floor. Once more, folks said nothing to me all night. I suppose they wanted to spare me, maybe because I was the bride and not just a guest for once, but it did felt like everyone was especially trying to be friendly, upbeat about everything. LOL, my hubby believes all the pricey food they were consuming really helped. We had a fun. For only a few period, my spouse kept the feigned angry expression before flushing in smiles once more. We then visited the hotel to catch some sleep before starting our honeymoon. Speaking of which, we rejected since my parents tried to pay for our aircraft tickets, but we felt that was dangerous as they could attempt and cancel them or something. Of course, the three have tried to get in touch with me throughout that entire process. I turned away calls as my husband insisted on maintaining a paper trail. Smart thing, since my sister messaged me finally. She blamed me for her humiliation. Called my husband a two-faced snake that misled her for months. She wants to print and put that on our wall, LOL. And hoped, but was also sure, that I would be cheated on by him. It was quite unhinged and lacked much sense. She also implied he was cheating on me with her. My husband actually grabbed my phone, screenshot the call records, screenshot my sister's message, screenshot some messages from my parents asking I pick up the phone, and shared all of it to my family group chat. He continued up the deluded I never agreed to anything act and even threatened to sue them for slander and harassment, while sending screenshots of messages to him whereby they called him names and threatened him. As I was being tormented by them continuously, he sent a note pleading my family for help on said group chat. Then finished neatly with a demand that they not share our locations to avoid my parents sending my sister over and claiming he had somehow agreed to pretend to her in our honeymoon suite, then begged family to help stop them from trying to ruin my honeymoon now that they had failed to ruin my wedding. My family reassured him they would take care of it. Since then, we have had quiet. My sister's non-compliance disappointed my husband, who then tore her a new one and told another about it. We'll find out if it holds true. All in all, even if I would definitely like a normal, loving family at my wedding, at least once in my life, they not only failed to damage something significant to me but also helped me to get it back. Extra information. Why do they treat me like this? I suppose you all will think the same as I've asked this question quite a lot. I still ponder this. I have wondered this all my life. I tried asking when I was little, but they denied any difference and chastised me for acting spoiled, so I gave up. Though I have various ideas, based on what I have seen, I believe it to be this. I was not supposed to be. After so long, they were wanted not just but also like a miraculous child as they took some time to have my sister. Given our age gap is really little, I believe they didn't use enough protection much too soon after my sister's birth or expected to have a child so quickly or easily. Perhaps they were stuck with an unplanned kid while still adjusting to a newborn since they didn't know my mom was pregnant until it was too late. They disliked me since they are not very wealthy and the additional cost probably did not help. That is only my speculation though. Still, I have acknowledged the response won't really matter. Whichever they did to me, it was unnecessary. Actually, did they believe this would work? After our conversation, my husband and I developed the opinion that they absolutely never wanted to do this at all. They presented my spouse that ridiculous suggestion. We believe my sister pitched a fit over my being married first when she hardly gets dates. They didn't want to pay for my wedding and didn't think we would accept, or that it would even look good for them to do, but by suggesting it and being turned down, they could look like the kind guys to my sister while having a justification not to pay $1. My husband then agreed though, and they couldn't undo or else run the danger of my sister turning on them. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.